We are here to discuss Chapter 5 of Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone as I get my book back out here. Today's video will include a talk about gold and some talk about inflation, which is very, very compelling in the world of literature. We're going to talk about wands and what those things mean here. And then there's going to be no talking about how wands are phallic symbols. None of that. We're not talking about that at all. They're phallic symbols, okay? But we're not going to talk about it. Number three, so there's a lot of other stuff, but the third big thing, which I think is the first big thing we're going to talk about once we get into things, is the first time around in this novel, I noticed something about goblins that was unsettling and how they are used in the Harry Potter universe. And it still rings true, okay? But when I got into it here, and I really started digging a little bit, it's not what I first thought. It's a lot worse than that. I had not at that time seen the movies, and I still haven't. But I did go investigating as to what the goblins were like in the movies. And guys, this is going to be, there's some very ugly stuff in this video. Maybe I should start with that. The acknowledgement that there are going to be some things in this video that are not nice to look at. But they are historical, and we are going to look at them. We're going to talk about what is going on in this text. This video will have three sections: a So What Happened recap of the chapter itself, a literary criticism section where we will touch on all of those ideas, and then a writer's corner section where we talk about some of the stuff that we can take from this text as writers ourselves. So, what happened? Harry wakes up early, and it's a good thing because Hagrid has to take him to get school supplies. He woke up and thought, well, that was all a dream. I'm just going to lay here in bed as I revel in what that dream was, unable to accept the fact that life gets better than what it was that he had known. So they get to London, and they find the Leaky Cauldron, where everyone is very excited to meet the Harry Potter. Then they go out into an alley, and there seems to be a secret entrance to Diagon Alley, which in my mind was Dragon Alley for some reason. I had remembered that as Dragon Alley, not Diagon Alley, where there's a witch and a wizard stuff everywhere. There is witch and wizard stuff. I said a. They make their way to Gringotts, get it? Green is money, and they got it. Gringotts, even though they don't have green money, they have yellow money. Where Harry is shown his fortune. He is the inheritor of quite a fortune. And as Harry is then getting fitted for his robes, they go and have to get the stuff for school. One of these stops is Harry getting fitted for his robes, which he has to wear to school. He meets a boy who lets him know that hatred is not exclusive to the world of muggles. There is hatred to be had in the world of witches and wizards and magic as well. Then the books. He gets the books, and we're going to talk a little bit about some of the authors thereof as well. And then, as a birthday present, Hagrid buys Harry an owl. And last, his wand. We get the presentation of the wands. So what else is going on in this text? What is there to talk about as we look at Diagon Alley and the fifth chapter of Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone? Well, I do want to start with a question. Is Dumbledore a great man? We have Dumbledore set up here and treated by pretty much everybody as a great man, someone to be revered. Great man is actually a term that has some significance historically. So if you think about great men and women, right? So, but the term great man has a theory behind it. Great men and women, they are people who us normals, us normies, could look at and say, you know, I wish I had the blank of blank. I wish I had the conviction of Abraham Lincoln. I wish I had the steadfast, terrifying conviction of Andrew Jackson. I wish I had the strength of Hercules or Zeus. Now, these people might not have been real, but they might have been what is called euhemerized, which is that they might have been real and worked their way into mythology because as people told stories about them, they became more and more fantastical until they were accepted as gods, and then their historicity is kind of forgotten. But great men, do they shape history? Or does history kind of meander about as it will, and there are people who fall into place? There is something called the great man theory, and when we think about things, if we're to zoom out from the context of the novel itself, we would be forced into recognition that in this world, the world of witches and wizards, the goings-on with Harry Potter would be as significant as one of these historical moments such as the life of Jesus, the life of Abraham Lincoln, the life of any of these people that have shaped history. So Albus Dumbledore would be, in this world, a historical figure. He would be written about in history books, not just chronicles of the day. The great man theory, proposed by Thomas Carlyle, asserts that history is shaped primarily by the often innate genius, courage, and decisions of extraordinary individuals, great men or heroes who appear when needed. It posits that leaders are born, not made, possessing inherent traits that distinguish them from the masses. The key aspects of this theory: that leaders are born and not made. Leaders possess innate, unteachable traits like charisma, intelligence, and wisdom. Those things are not innate. To some extent, intelligence is innate, but not completely, right? There are ranges that everyone has upon birth, it seems. There are certain governors on the ceiling of intellect, I guess we should say, but that there are not necessarily governors put on the absolute way that you can form your intelligence. Historical impact history is the biography of these heroes, not determined by social forces. Timing: these individuals emerge during crises to lead. Divine elite influence: heroes possess, in some views, divine inspiration. Examples: often cited figures include Napoleon, Alexander the Great, and Julius Caesar. Strengths of this are that the significant impact of individuals can have on shaping historical events, provides simple, understandable framework for studying leadership and history. The biggest criticism of this that often pops up is gender bias that excludes women and is heavily patriarchal. True. That's true. That is definitely true. Should not be the biggest of the criticisms on this, for the pure point, the pure fact that throughout history, women were not allowed to be leaders, right? So it is, the great man theory is true that they were most often men doing this. But the biggest criticism of this, I think, is the innate qualities of the leader, because there were certainly women who could have led had they been allowed the opportunity. Should they have been followed by masses the way that masses seemed to take men generally more seriously than women. And because they didn't, that's why the women don't show up in historical texts the way that men do. That is a societal factor. That's why, one of the big reasons why this theory should not be taken quite as seriously. The big thing to me is that I think a lot of this theory is absolutely true if you don't take into account divinity. The assumption that these great men, and if we are to allow the historical context, great women as well, accept the historical context, great women as well, were not born great people. They made their way to being great people. One of the people that I just mentioned, Abraham Lincoln, he is known for his resolute nature. Did you know that when he was a member of Congress or the Senate, I can't remember where he served, prior to becoming president, he got into an argument during debate, and things were going so poorly for him. Check me on this because it's not 100% accurate, I'm sure. Things were going so poorly for him that he opened a window in the building and crawled out. That's not the Abraham Lincoln that you know from your history books. After that, whatever he went through in life, he had built himself up to being this resolute individual that was able to guide a country through a civil war. The biggest criticism, I think that the great man theory, as it is in whole, is kind of flaky. But I do believe that history is made by great people in equal parts as it is determined by social forces. So, in today's world, the social climate of today is to disregard this theory and say that it is bullocks, and to say that it is not individuals that make history, but social forces. That things would have happened the way that they happened, really regardless of whether or not any of these quote-unquote great people had come along. The civil rights movement would have happened without Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X. I don't believe those theories at all. If you want to be, a real cynic about the academia of today, and I am a cynic about today's academia, make no mistake about that, there is a growing emphasis on the de-emphasis of individuals, the de-emphasizing of great people, great writers, great scholars, things like that, to sweep them away as just those things were there to be discovered and someone would have discovered them. Maybe the starkest example of this is Einstein, because Einstein, there was an Annus Mirabilis, a miracle year in 1905, where Einstein, this unknown patent clerk who had been denied teaching posts, publishes these 5 papers that absolutely destroy what science to that point had been. I say that, but revolutionize everything that people in different fields thought was going on with the reality they were currently trying to measure. Einstein, a patent clerk, not a scientist, not a professor, well, a scientist, not a professor, not an employed scientist, says, you know what, this is how it's done. Submits these papers, and they're published, and the whole world is different in a single year because a guy who was not in academia. So the prevailing wisdom around this moment was that there were several branches of science at the time that were approaching these breakthroughs. And eventually, if Einstein hadn't just plopped it on the table and said, this is what it is, then they kind of would have come to the same conclusions maybe months later or whatever. I don't think that is true at all. Walter Isaacson has a stupendous biography on Einstein, and it becomes pretty clear that even after these things were published, Einstein himself was a little bit unsure of, in the black hole stuff is stuff that we're still unsure of a little bit around the edges. Wasn't proven until Stephen Hawking in, what was it, the 90s, 50 years after Einstein's real heyday. But basically 100 years after these papers. The Einstein himself was not real clear. There was a guy named Eddie Sislard who kind of came to the conclusion, if memory serves me correctly, hey, this atom stuff, this atomic stuff, you could blow a lot of stuff up with that. And we have the power and technology to do it, which is what ended World War II. Einstein was kind of on the fence about it until Eddie Sislard showed up at his apartment or wrote him a letter, I can't remember, saying, hey, the Germans are on this. You need to help me get the president to understand what this is and what this could be, because if we don't, right, so even the great men are not 100% sure of the sort of tendrils which their great works could actually impact. So I don't believe that any of the scientists around Einstein would have kind of stumbled onto the things that he was able to prove on their own for decades, maybe 100 years. If we're still dealing with the core elements of the papers that Einstein had published in 1905, here it is 121 years later. We are still dealing with those things. You can't, and that's with the communication age, the technology age, the age of the internet, making all of this information ubiquitous. You can't convince me that, oh yeah, we would have gotten there eventually. I think that these great people really do make a very big difference in that. And so the Dumbledores of the world are important. Goblins. Let's talk about goblins. What are goblins? Well, in the world of Harry Potter, they run Gringotts, the bank. So let's take a little bit of a historical trip, not as extensive, I promise, as the rambling I just went on. What is a goblin? This comes to us from Wikipedia. A goblin is a diminutive, grotesque, and often malevolent humanoid creature prominent in European folklore, typically characterized by its mischievous or demonic nature, small stature, furry or leathery appearance, and ability to shapeshift. Goblins are believed to dwell in subterranean areas or households where they engage in acts ranging from pranks to murder. Their etymology derives from Old French gobelin. I speak French. Possibly linked to medieval Latin gobelinus, or Greek kobolos, meaning rogue or sprite. From what I've kind of read, I think that this is the actual root of the word there, the kobolos from the Greek. Though some scholars trace it to earlier domestic protector spirits like the Germanic kobold, which were later demonized under Christian influence. I'm just going to underline this. You can remember that. We'll get back to some things in a moment. Similar creatures include brownies, dwarves, duendes, gnomes, imps, leprechauns, and kobolds. But it is also commonly used as a blanket term for all small, fey creatures. The term sometimes expanded to include goblin-like creatures of other cultures, such as Pukwudgie, Dakibi, or Ifrit. Now, the first time... No, let's just go into the visuals. Okay, a goblin. In your mind, your mind's eye, get a picture of a goblin. Any goblin you've ever seen and kind of morph them all into the same thing. We're going to look at some depictions here, and I'm going to ask you whether or not they're fair. This is apparently, I believe, an 1800s picture of a goblin. Okay? Does this look fair? A fair representation of a goblin. Okay? There's the nose. Remember, oversized nose. Gotcha. Ears. Kind of exaggerated ears. Here we have a dark fur. We have sort of deep set but bulging eyes. So these are all things that are kind of goblin-esque, right? Now we're going to go to some more modern depictions, and I just want to ask you, is this a fair depiction of what a goblin looks like in your mind's eye. When you hear the word goblin, is it something like this that you visualize? Okay, well, big nose, exaggerated ears. We have here, even though the eyes are blue, they are deep set and kind of baggy, and that seems to be a pretty common feature here. Now let's go to I believe I have a third example here. Okay, is this an unfair representation of a goblin from what you have in your mind's eye when you hear the word goblin? Probably not, right? This is kind of what you would expect. And I don't know where these last two depictions come from. I believe they are from games. I don't know if these are card games, video games, whatever. Big nose. All right, gotcha. Large ears. Gotcha. We have, again, the deep-set eyes, wrinkled eyes. Okay, gotcha. Now I'm going to show you some ugly stuff. These are goblins. I'm going to show you some real ugly stuff here because we have to make this point because it gets real bad. This is Nazi propaganda of a Jew. Big nose, exaggerated ears. We have both of those, check and check. Deep-set eyes, beset by wrinkles. Sometimes when you talk about the stereotypes of Jewish people, you have beady eyes. You'll hear that term a lot, things like that. Gotcha. Okay, so the link is not all that hard to see, I don't think. More here. You have a large nose. You have larger ears. And the ears are striking because you don't, when you hear people make fun of the stereotype or whatever, you never hear them talk about the ears. But when you look at the images, it's there. You have eyes deep set, beset by wrinkles. Okay. Now, I've never seen Harry Potter. Never seen it. The first time I read through this book, it struck me that goblins were set in charge of the banks. In nasty stereotypes and in all of this world of hatred, if you start talking about propaganda and things like that, one of the things that is said about Jewish people is that they hoard money. From my understanding of this, where this comes from, and that Jewish people are greedy, right? Where this comes from is in the early sort of medieval period. Christians were not allowed to charge interest on loaning money. It was known as usury. The Merchant of Venice comes from this same tradition. And because of that, it was very difficult to convince someone to loan you money because they get nothing out of it. They lose their money if they lose access to their money, even if you pay them back, right? So this was not a problem with the Jewish faith. The idea of usury was not really as profound there, right? So they could say, I will loan you this money. I will loan you $100. You owe me $110. Christians could not do that. It was against their religion. So, because of this, Jewish people were able to loan money, make money on money, things like that. So it struck me that goblins, who, when you put together the stereotypes of what a goblin looks like and the stereotypes of what Jewish people look like, the stereotypes, the propagandistic types, the exaggerated features are the same. The nose, the ears, the eyes, those are what... That's why it struck me, is that it was like J.K. Rowling putting the stereotypes together and saying, okay, well, we have to have some greedy people run the banks. Let's make them look like Jewish people. That was kind of what I rolled with the entire first time. Because guys, whether you want to admit it or not, that is kind of hard to get away from. If you think J.K. Rowling did that on purpose or not, the thing, the comparisons there are hard to get away from. Like I just showed you, right? I think that that's out there. I'm not saying necessarily that she did it on purpose. So I wanted to see if I was being unfair. Was I being unfair to J.K. Rowling? Was I being unfair to the world of Harry Potter? So I said, well, let's just look at what they look like in the movies. I don't know that J.K. Rowling would have had any say over what the movies did visually, but if there's something I'm missing from the text that removes those stereotypical features, maybe I'm being unfair. Maybe the goblins in J.K. Rowling are described with an appearance that I glossed over, and it has to do with the fact that they have tiny noses and they have no ears at all, no physical ears at all. Maybe I'm missing something. So I said, what do they look like in the movies? Guys, 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 come on. You've got to give me credit for this. If you were to take this propagandistic picture right here, burn this in your memory, this propagandistic picture right here, and try to imagine it. Close your eyes and try to imagine it three-dimensional, in the flesh. Try to imagine that in the flesh. Okay, tell me, that right there does not look exactly like this right here, minus the beard. Okay, now, okay, that's bad enough. That is bad enough. Let me tell you the reason my knees went out when I saw this picture. Again, I had no idea what this creature looked like on the big screen. And that is stark right there. If you were to write down the propagandistic stereotypes appearance and say, hey, go make me a puppet that looks like this, it's right here. It's right there. It's all right there. But that's not the part that made my knees weak when I saw it. So I'm not like the biggest World War II history buff, but there is, I think, like all people, a morbid curiosity here. And I've probably consumed more content than 80% of people about that era, because you how did that happen, right? I want you to pay attention to something here. Look at this, the shirt there, white and blue stripes. Just look at that, white and blue stripes, vertical stripes. That's an interesting choice. Okay. Yeah, let's do it. World War II internment. The Jewish people who were taken into concentration camps were given a uniform to wear. You know what that uniform looked like? Tell me I'm being unfair. A linen appearing white with blue vertical stripes. Tell me I'm being unfair. Maybe I am. Maybe I am. I do not wish to dwell here too long. However, we have other things to talk about. Now, one thing that is striking and starting to become prevalent in the text that does carry through the entire series. Still, though, guys, still, I don't think I'm being unfair there. I'm going to get criticism for this. I don't think I'm being unfair here. On pages 79 into 80, we have the following. This is as Hagrid is taking Harry away to go to London. They settled down in the boat, Harry still staring at Hagrid, trying to imagine him flying. He's so big. "Seems a shame to row, though," said Hagrid, giving Harry another of his sideways looks. "If I was to, speed things up a bit, would you mind not mentioning it at Hogwarts?" "Of course not," said Harry, eager to see more magic. Hagrid pulled out the little pink umbrella again, tapped it twice on the side of the boat, and they sped off toward land. Now, here we have Hagrid deciding to break rules. These are rules that are given to him not by Voldemort. These are rules given to him by the good guys. Dumbledore has said, "Hey, listen, you're a good guy. I can't have you doing magic. Okay, just stop doing magic because this is dangerous. You're screwing things up." Even the Dumbledores of the world are not supposed to practice magic in the world of Muggles. We find ourselves here squarely rooted in the world of Muggles. And here we have Hagrid doing magic again. More magic there. This goes towards an overarching anti-authority sentiment in this text, as opposed to anti-authoritarianism. What is the difference? Authoritarianism, little a, not the government. Authoritarianism is saying, you can't do this. Why? Because I've said so. Like your parents. Your parents tell you you can't go out with certain friends. Why not? Because I said so. You got to listen. It roils under the surface of this text because this text is presumably for children. Children don't like having all that authority. And it is endorsed in this text because the text is sort of politically leaning like J.K. Rowling, where you would assume it is anti-authoritarianism. Okay, great. Nothing wrong with anti-authoritarianism. There's something to be questioned about anti-authority. Authority does not mean authoritarian. Authoritarian plays on a type of authority. Not all authority is authoritarian. That is a distinguishing quality, which we will come back to later in this video as well. Then we get this on 81 here. We have Harry asking Hagrid some of the questions about the world of magic. "But what does a Ministry of Magic do?" Harry asks. "Well, their main job is to keep it from the Muggles, and there's still witches and wizards up and down the country." "Why?" "Why? Blimey, Harry. Everyone be wanting magic solutions to their problems. Nah, we're best left alone." Does that comport with the sort of leanings of someone like J.K. Rowling? Does J.K. Rowling understand that what she's doing here is saying that everyone that starves to death in the world is starving to death because of magic? Because magicians, wizards, and witches just want to be left alone? Don't bother us with your need for food. Don't bother us when people are freezing to death. We want to do our magic on our own. We don't have time to solve your problems. I imagine that is not the sentiment that someone like J.K. Rowling would want associated with their text. But this does seem, especially as in this world, which I'm sure we'll get back to later in this book, in this world, there seems to be no charge for magic. What do I mean by that? Well, in some types of magic, some worlds of magic, the debt has to be paid. In some types of magic, there has to be a sacrifice to the other world, a sacrifice of someone. You sacrifice someone's life, you have a charge of power. In other types of magic, the price to be paid is blood magic, where that vital force of blood is used in exchange for the power necessary to do certain things. In certain types of magic, where does the magic come from? You want to move this bookcase, so you use magic to do it. Well, that magic is actually invisible to your eye, because what you're doing is you're commanding an army of spirits. People who have been dead are now your slaves. They were enslaved by you and your use of magic. We can't see why the bookshelf is moving, but the bookshelf is moving because these dead people are moving it, because you are commanding them to do so, because you have power over them. To the best of my recollection, there is zero charge for the magic in this world. So the fact that all of these things are going wrong in the world of Muggles is only going wrong in the world of Muggles because the witches and the wizards won't fix it. Does that sound like the ethos of a good guy? Now, let's talk about authors. There is some stuff going on in this with the authors. We have a list of books on page 83. A Beginner's Guide to Transfiguration, written by Emmerich Switch. Transfigure, switch. 1001 Magical Herbs and Fungi by Phillida Spore. Magical Drafts and Potions by, I'm not going to say that word because YouTube might might mistake it, but Beasts, Weird Animals, written by Newt. The Dark Forces, written by Quentin Trimble. You tremble in the face of dark forces. Then on 100 later in this chapter, we get this one, Curses and Counter Curses, written by Professor Vindicus Viridian. Vindictus, right? So just some fun with author names. Then, as an American, I need to defend something here. I even have some math to do so. We have this. So Harry Potter is on his way to London. On 84, we get the sentence, Harry had never seen London before. Well, I doubt that is uncommon. I bet there are plenty of people in the United Kingdom who have never seen London. People from all over the world like to criticize Americans because we are not well-traveled. We are not well-traveled. We don't go and see the world. We don't experience those things. They make fun of us because we spend all of our time in our very own country. Harry has never been to London. England is approximately 50,300 square miles. That is the size of England in the United Kingdom. Guys, that's the size of North Carolina. So the United States, when people from the United States have gone to other states, size-wise, that's the same thing as going to different countries. Yes, it is. I have lived in the state of Missouri my entire life. But I've lived in 3 different cities, Kansas City, St. Joseph, and St. Louis, St. Charles. From where I am now, it's 60 miles north to where I lived in St. Joe. From where I am now, it's 400-ish miles east to where I lived in St. Louis, St. Charles. Anyone from St. Charles says they're from St. Louis. Anyone from St. Louis says, no, you're not, right? So that's why I say it that way. In Europe, it could be not that I have lived in different states, but that I have lived in 3 different countries. So the sheer scale of the United States is often misinterpreted on a world scale. Now I want to talk about Diagon Alley. Diagonally. Now, I know that there is some contention about the what is called queer coding in this text. It's not there. It's only there. It's not what that means. It's exclusively what that means. I don't know. I'm just making the arguments as I see the stuff. But what does it mean to be diagonal? If you are diagonally from something, it's not straight. Diagonally is not straight. Now, technically, it's always straight. This is straight. This is up and down. This is diagonal. But what we sort of colloquially say is this is straight. This is not straight. So, the not straight place is where all of the magic people go to do their shopping. Just putting that out there. Listen to it, don't listen to it. Just putting it out there. It's in the text. Tell me it's not what it means, but it's in the text. Small note here, broomstick called the Nimbus 2000, and Nimbus is a rain cloud, so just worth taking, is among the clouds, right? Things like that. Now we get to a really interesting quirk from this text, which has something that maps onto the real world in a way that you probably wouldn't expect. We have the mention of gold. On page 94, we have some fun stuff to do with, is it 94? Yes, 94. As Harry has been introduced to his enormous wealth, we have Hagrid explaining what he's looking at. The gold ones are galleons, he explained. 17 silver sickles to a galleon and 9 nuts to a sickle. It's easy enough. Right, that should be enough for a couple of terms. We'll just keep the rest safe for you. He turned to Griffhook. Vault 7, now that's not necessary for what we're talking about, but he has an enormous amount of gold and silver and nuts, which are basically copper, I think. This is interesting. This is very interesting. The world of magic runs off of the gold standard, or on the gold standard, whereas you and I do not. We do not run on the gold standard anymore. Gold is interesting. Today, gold is worth $5,038 per ounce. In 1998, gold opened the year at $288. It was averaged at $294, and the yearly high in 1998 was $313. Do you see the exponential growth in gold? $294 in 1998, not quite 30 years ago. $294 to $5,038? Because we are not on the gold standard. Our dollar is not pegged to anything physical. So, the world of magic, Dumbledore and Harry Potter, etc., they're extremely rich right now. They are extremely rich today. How many times their money has gone up. But the numbers there, the gold ones, 17 silver sickles to a galleon. That is a silver to gold ratio of 17 to 1, meaning 17 of the silver, I dropped everything, 17 of the silver coins equals 1 of the gold coin. Well, not stated directly by what the notes that I have taken here is the fact that silver is around $90-ish an ounce today, I believe. It was $115 for a little bit. It's gone down. The silver to gold ratio, ounces of silver to ounces of gold, is extraordinary. Historically, it was not so. Historically, it was like 60 to 1, something like that. 50 to 1, something like that. Gold has skyrocketed in value. I'm getting to a point in the text, I promise. And silver has not quite done the same. It's gone up a lot. In 2017, I believe silver was $17 an ounce. So for it to be hovering around 100, you have an exponential growth in silver value as well. But 17 to 1 is interesting for this reason. Silver to gold ratio of 17 to 1 most commonly refers to the geological abundance of these metals in Earth's crust, suggesting there is approximately 17 times more silver than gold in existence. If there is 17 times more silver than gold in existence, a silver to gold ratio of 17 to 1 implies that there is no special value to gold. This suggests that the value of these things is pegged directly to their rarity. Gold is worth more than silver strictly because there is less gold than silver. It's all about scarcity. It's all about the rarity of the elements themselves. But in the world of magic, it is exclusively that. It is exclusively about their rarity, their comparative rarity, versus the world of muggles like you and I, probably most of your muggles. The world of muggles places an added emphasis on gold. Why? Because we like it. Or something else. Maybe it's the Anunnaki, I don't know. But we like gold more than do the magic peoples. So that is interesting. The price of silver compared to gold, historical standards for centuries, it maintained that ratio of 15 or 16 to 1, set in by the U.S. Coinage Act of 1792. Modern markets, it has fluctuated between 50 to 1 to 90 to 1, closer to 91 in today's money. So it is interesting to see, did J.K. Rowling know that? Or is that just happenstance that it appeared in the text in that way, that there is a 17 to 1 ratio of silver to gold in the natural world? Now, if we're talking about this stuff in the text that is risque, if we're talking about stuff in the text that, man, you gotta wonder if she meant it this way, like we did with the goblins, like we will do many times in this text, I'm sure. When Harry meets Draco Malfoy, the Malfoy boy, there is a strange exchange between the two of them. And then, so they're weird, right? So Draco is an elitist. He's kind of like a Nazi, right? From World War II. You got to watch Saying the Words on YouTube. So we get that. He is a supremacist. But then we get another example in this text of hypocrisy, of just blatant hypocrisy. So one of the hypocrisies in this novel is that the dichotomy between the magic people and the regular people, the magicians, the witches and wizards, they do not like regular people. Regular people do not like the witches and wizards, of course, right? We get it. But in the same way that the regular people have a slur, probably, for witches and wizards, so too do the witches and wizards, supposedly the good guys, supposedly the better people, have a slur towards non-magical people, muggles. God, that's kind of hypocritical, isn't it? If you are the better folks, why do you have to refer to somebody else by some type of slur? Why do you have to invent a slur for that? Then we get this as Hagrid is explaining the different houses at Hogwarts. And he says he's afraid he's going to be a Hufflepuff. And Hagrid says this, "Better Hufflepuff than Slytherin," says Hagrid darkly. "There's not a single witch or wizard who went bad that wasn't Slytherin." Is that where he ends the statement? Yeah. So this is getting dangerous again. This is getting into stereotypes again. This is getting into uncomfortable territory, because how many people have you known that were, for example, racist? And they said not all group of people, so not all, I don't want to put these words out there, not all gray people are bad, but all gray people, but not all gray people are bad, but all bad people are gray people. These are the good guys putting this stuff out there. This is the author of the text just planting that in here. If you were to look at Hogwarts as a metaphor, it's very easy to say that certain schools are like a race. You don't choose to be Gryffindor. You were Gryffindor by birth. That's what the Sorting Hat tells you. If you are a Slytherin, you did not choose to be a Slytherin. You were Slytherin by birth. That's what the Sorting Hat tells you. Not all thieves, not all Slytherin are thieves, but all thieves are Slytherin. Ooh, that's working into some territory that is backed up in the text that doesn't sound like it should be, does it? Now, the final big talking point here from the text is the wands. First off, it should be observed that Ollivanders... Are there two L's there? Yeah, there's two L's there. I misspelled that in the text. Ollivanders has been around since 382 BC, which means that it would have been under Roman control at that time. It says that this store of Ollivanders has been around since 382 BC. In 382 BC, England was a Roman territory. So the British were subjugated by the Romans. So we have a little bit more of the anti-authoritarianism, not just anti-authority, but anti-authoritarianism in the text. But here's probably the good kind. So what do I mean by that? The magic class in this world of Harry Potter is a magic world of people who are covert, but very powerful. And this would have been in the Roman times, you would have been, it is to say, I think, largely, that the magic in this world is rootly English, which is to say that they would have been around in 382 BC, sneaking around and subverting the Romans, who were the outside invaders. Now let's talk about those wands themselves. We have a lot of examples and symbols thrown around in the text through the employment of the wands themselves. Now, how do I mean that? Well, Mother had a 10¼ inch willow wand. We're not going to talk about size. We're not going to talk about varying size and phallic symbols. We're not going to do that. I'm more mature than that. So we're just going to talk about the trees themselves. This is a willow. This is what Harry's mother's wand was made from. I don't know why I have to put it in a square, otherwise you might think I'm talking about this. That is willow there. No, that is not willow. The tree here is a willow tree. That is what Harry's mother's wand was made from. What do willow trees represent? Willow trees symbolize flexibility, resilience, and adaptability, embodying the ability to bend without breaking in challenging conditions. Would we attribute that to Harry Potter's mother? Often linked to water, the moon, and feminine energy. They represent deep emotions, healing, and intuition. Would we put that in correlation with Harry Potter's mother in this text? Additionally, they are powerful symbols of grief, mourning, and the cycle of life, death, and rebirth. All of those things are symbols in this text. Great choice for a wood for the mother's wand, J.K. Rowling. What about father's wand? Bigger than mother's wand. 11 inches, only slightly bigger than mother's wand, and mahogany. This is a mahogany tree. Looks kind of fatherly, doesn't it? Big tree like that. Now, mother's tree It's just a tree. Father's tree has nuts. Kind of. Mahogany trees do not produce edible nuts, but they develop large, woody, upright capsules, often mistaken for fruits or nuts, known as sky fruit, fake nuts. These capsules mature in fall and winter, splitting open to release dozens of winged brown seeds that act like helicopters to disperse in the wind. So Harry Potter falling not far from the father's tree. The mahogany tree, what does it symbolize? Symbolizes strength, resilience, and endurance, often representing the grounded, protective, and long-lived nature due to its durable wood and massive 200-foot stature. Culturally, it is revered as a guardian of the land. Those are good things that you would like to see in a father figure, aren't they? A symbol of prosperity, a mark of luxury, wealth, and high-quality craftsmanship because of the wood. So, father's tree has big nuts, and it is known for its wood. We're more mature than this. We're not going to let this stop there. Now, Voldemort had a 13.5-inch whopper of a yew branch. This is a yew tree. Right here. This is a graveyard. Why would that just kind of happen to be in a picture of a yew tree? Well, yew trees are often put in church yards, which often double as a graveyard. So that is a big, scary-looking tree, isn't it? It looks like it has tendrils, like wispy fingers there. What does a yew tree represent, symbolize? Well, first we need to know this. Yews have berries, not nuts. They have berries, small, soft, bright red, and jelly-like, with a sweet, mildly herbal flavor similar to gelatin. While the red pulp is edible, the inner seed and the rest of the tree are highly toxic, containing taxine alkaloids that can cause severe vomiting, dizziness, and fatal cardiac failure. So yew trees can kill you. But they can kill you through their berries, which are edible. They want to trick you into eating them, and then your body will die and decompose, fertilizing the berry's seed that you ingested as well. What does a yew tree represent? The yew tree is a powerful dualistic symbol representing immortality, death, and rebirth. Do we associate those things with Voldemort in this text? Due to its immense lifespan, up to 3,000 years, and ability to rejuvenate by rerooting branches, what do we have from Voldemort in this very text? Does he reroot someplace in this very book? Non-spoilers here. Known as the Tree of Resurrection or the Tree of Eternity, it is deeply associated with churchyards, the underworld, and the transition of souls. Great choice, J.K. We have Hagrid with an absolute whopper 16-inch oak, or at least he did. He lost this phallic symbol. It was broken because he couldn't control it. What does an oak represent? This is an oak tree, by the way. I don't know if the standards of this video had shown that out. The oak tree is a premier symbol of strength, endurance, longevity, and stability. Deeply rooted in history, mythology, and nature, it represents power, wisdom, and protection. These two maybe not quite so Hagrid-like. Protection, I think, is there, but not through magic. Often linked with the deities of thunder and lightning in various cultures, including Zeus and Thor. And we have Hagrid, who looks like Fat Thor from Marvel. Remember when Thor lost his way? Known for its slow, steady growth and lasting legacy, the oak signifies resilience and deep-rooted endurance. Resilience and endurance, I think we would associate with Hagrid here. He has been expelled, but still sticks around. Then we have Harry with an 11-inch holly, 11 inches, the same size as his father. holly. This is a holly tree. These are the berries of a holly tree. So, Harry's tree does put fruit forth, just like Dad's tree and just like Voldemort's tree, but the fruit of that tree, a red berry, looks much more like Voldemort's fruit. What does a holly tree represent? Holly tree is a potent ancient symbol of eternal life, protection, and resilience, largely due to its evergreen nature and sharp leaves that remain vibrant through winter. Historically, it represents defense against evil, defense against the dark arts, spirits, and lightning. While in Christianity, it signifies the crown of thorns of Christ's blood. Do we associate Harry Potter with Christ? He's clearly set up as a Christ-like figure in this text. Now, eternal life, protection, and resilience. We have eternal life, protection, and resilience. Protection and resilience, the same as the oak tree, which represents Hagrid. Eternal life, immortality, which represents the yew tree, the same as Voldemort. Resilience, endurance, the same as Father's mahogany tree. So just some different things thrown around there through symbolism. That is what art can do, tell you things without telling you things if you know what you're looking at. Now, it is interesting as well that Harry's wand is the brother to Voldemort's wand because the feather in it comes from the same phoenix as the feather that was in Voldemort's wand. Phoenixes are known for burning up and then rising again, a symbol of rebirth. So that is there as well, inherent in this symbol of the wand. The wand, should be noted, 7 ounces of gold. We're assuming that galleons are ounces. 7 ounces of gold. That would have been $2,058 in 1998. It is $35,000. $35,266 today. The joys of inflation. Now, Writer's Corner. What can we take from this text as writers ourselves? Well, this happens on page 88. Told you, didn't I? Told you was famous. Even Professor Quirrell was trembling at meeting you. Mind you, he's usually trembling. Is he always that nervous? Harry Potter asks. Oh yeah, poor bloke. Brilliant mind. He was fine while he was studying out of books, but then he took a year off to get some first-hand experience. They say he met vampires in the Black Forest. And then there was a nasty bit of trouble with a hag. Never been the same since. Scared of the students, scared of his own subject. Now, where's me umbrella? We have Quirrell described in that way. Now, we don't know why until the end of the text. That is something which adds to the rereadability of a text. Also, what adds to the rereadability of a text is that first meeting with Draco Malfoy. Because we don't know who he is. Later, we come to know him. So the second time you read this book, that interaction has additional weight. And then shortly after meeting Draco, the Malfoy boy, we have Harry remembering the event and saying he was strongly reminded of Dudley. That's a good way to set him up as the new villain. Meet the new villain, same as the old villain. So those are things that you can add in your text that kind of play with your reader's expectations and your reader's reflections after the fact. That is all I have for this video. If you like or appreciate what it is that I do here, hitting a like button really does help me out, as it tells YouTube to share this video with other literature lovers. And if you find yourself here by chance but not design, consider hitting the subscribe button to stick around for more. And as always, I hope to have you back for the next one.